It'd be easy to interpret him telling women, on the first date, sometimes it was literally the first date, or within the first week, that he was in love with them, that he wanted to have a baby with them, that they should get pregnant, this stuff. He did this repeatedly, many different women, okay? You could look at that as him being lying and manipulative, that he's just trying to seduce this woman, so he says these things, but he doesn't mean it. But of course, it's much more tragic if you understand that he is deeply committed to his own form of dishonesty to such an extent that he considers himself to have been truthful, not just in the moment, but in looking back on it now.
Like for instance, if person A is dating person B, and person C is told by person B that you are not to with person A, one of the most honest YouTubers here, but person A told person B and communicated back and forth that it was in fact okay to with person C, and person C doesn't tell person A that person B said, hey, you can't with this person, one of the most honest YouTubers here. It's important to actually confess to that other person that you weren't supposed to with them because they don't know, and you wind up being on person B with person A. No, a lie is something that you say, that you know for a fact, when you say it, that it's untrue. Your sense of integrity, your sense of justice, right and wrong, all these morals that you project, can't admit when you're wrong, can't confess your own flaws. There are people who say things, like, hey, I'll be there at 6 o'clock, and you're not there at 6 o'clock. That's not a liar. That's a person who didn't actually follow through with the plans they made because they didn't at the moment know that they wouldn't be able to make it. One of the most honest YouTubers here. And that's why I say, I'm honest, because I literally think about telling the truth all the time in the moment I'm telling the truth, and I don't ever go, that's a lie, but I'm gonna say it anyway. What's up? What are you doing? Oh, my ex-sister-in-law's a I just wanted to check out her. What the? Ew, dude. Okay, you act like you wish you married your ex-sister-in-law instead of your ex-wife. Wow. Holy sh**. You really do wish you. Wow. Wow. Cutting a little deep there. A lot of you don't even care that you're wrong. It doesn't even matter what the truth is. One of the most honest YouTubers here.
What does it mean to meet someone and on the first date tell them that you love them? What does it mean to say to somebody within, say, 1 week of meeting them face to face that you want to get married, you want to have a kid with them? Onision has a long track record of this kind of behavior. And, I can give him some credit. He at least does make fun of himself for it. It's not just his various ex-girlfriends and ex-wives who say this about him, but, he does say it of himself with a little bit of humility and a little bit of mockery. If you don't really know someone and you tell them that you love them, I don't think it's really possible for that statement to be honest or dishonest in a simple sense. I mean, maybe you're in love with the idea of them. Maybe you're in love with a fantasy you have about them, or you're even in love with a set of assumptions you have about them. And guys, this has happened to me several times where I have met women and right off the bat, they say they want to get married to me, they want to have a kid with me, that they're in love with me. One of those relationships turned into my first marriage, and it turned into my first divorce. And, I don't blame her. But of course, if you look back at that, what can you say for either party involved? I mean, you met someone, you barely know them, you tell yourself you're in love with them, you tell them that you're in love with them. Is it the truth? Maybe you only find out later when you're looking back on what that relationship was. Now, what Onision lacks is humility. And it's the lack of humility, it's the megalomania, it's the egomania, if you like, that makes his form of honesty completely meaningless. In what sense can we claim that he's being honest when he tells us, as he tells us again and again and again, in what sense could he be honest when he tells us that he was in love with every single woman he ever had sex with, that he's never had casual sex in his life, that he only has sex with women where he's actually in love with them, and where he's in love with them on the same level as the woman he married and had 2 kids with? Okay, so if that were true, if we could believe that, if we could treat him as being honest, then the whole story of what happened with him and Sarah suddenly becomes tragic from his perspective, from her perspective, from any perspective. Because then the story becomes he's a man who employed his 16-year-old as a babysitter. She hung around, and when she was 18, a few days after she turned 18, he had sex with her. So at what point did he fall in love with her? Right? Because he says he absolutely only has sexual relations with people he is in love with and committed to on that same level as his wife, as the mother of his children. Well, he made that video in which he insulted the audience and reproached the audience for imagining that he had a sexual relationship with Sarah. He clarified that he absolutely never had done anything sexual with her in the past, and he stated that he never would. And according to Sarah, a couple of days after he made that video, he did have sex with Sarah. So, it would be much easier to interpret all of this behavior as lying, as manipulative, as dishonest. It would be easy to interpret him telling women, on the first date, sometimes it was literally the first date, or within the first week, that he was in love with them, that he wanted to have a baby with them, that they should get pregnant, this stuff. He did this repeatedly, many different women, okay? You could look at that as him being lying and manipulative, that he's just trying to seduce this woman, so he says these things, but he doesn't mean it. But of course, it's much more tragic if you understand that he is deeply committed to his own form of dishonesty to such an extent that he considers himself to have been truthful, not just in the moment, but in looking back on it now also. He can't look back on that, as I just did with my first wife, and say like, yeah, he thought he was in love, or he told himself that he was in love, and he told this person that he was in love, but really they were complete strangers. Really looking back at it, this is someone he had a few emails with and a few Skype conversations with, and then the minute they met and went to a hotel room, he took the plunge, he went off the deep end. It doesn't take a whole lot of maturity or a whole lot of humility to look back at that and see a kind of dishonesty, even in him telling the woman that he's in love with her, and a whole nother level of dishonesty of him coming on YouTube and telling the internet that he was in love with her, that he's been completely, profoundly in love with all these women he slept with. Some of them were just short-term love affairs, and some of them, 5 minutes after he was saying he was completely in love and he'd found the one, he found the woman he'd spend the rest of his life with, he comes on the internet and horribly humiliates these women. This is also a pattern. And he says he's being honest the whole time, that it's not manipulative, it's not premeditated, he's not aware that he's lying. Yeah, well, the lack of self-awareness, that part I can believe. What we want to talk about isn't the difference between honesty and dishonesty, but maybe the difference between being overcome with desire and understanding the way things really are with dispassion and attachment. Anytime a grown man tells you that he's got to redefine the meaning of the term truth, he's got to redefine the meaning of the term lie, that he's going to explain to you his particular definition of what it means to tell a lie, discussion's already over. There's nothing more to debate there. Anytime someone tells you they're going to redefine the meaning of the term racism, either to make the definition of racism so narrow that almost nobody is racist, or sometimes they redefine racism to make it so broad that 99% of people are racist. There's nothing to debate there. The conversation is already over. In redefining the terms, the person engaged in the redefinition, they're revealing to you what their motivations are. And they're revealing to you also the way in which they justify themselves, they manipulate themselves.
No, a lie is something that you say, that you know for a fact, when you say it, that it's untrue. I literally think about telling the truth all the time in the moment I'm telling the truth.
I don't think anyone alive, I don't think anyone, including Onision's wife or husband, Lainey, Kai, I don't think anyone believes in his definition of the truth. But he has a sense of his own moral purpose that leads him to cling to this notion, insist on this notion, because it's the only thing that separates him from a lying, manipulative scumbag. in the same way that a priest in the Dark Ages would find justification by faith alone. His justification is that he really was in love with these women. And that, more than anything else, is tragic.
Dun, 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 dun.